My name is Rebecca Scroggy. I am a registered nurse and an IBCLC, but probably most importantly, I am a mom to 2 kids. I am so beyond thrilled to be here with you and share some amazing superstar interviews with you all. We will be going over amazing topics like lactation, postpartum mental health, pelvic floor, and so much more. Just to make sure you don't miss anything, make sure to hit subscribe and follow us on all of our socials. We'll link them below. And as always, we want to know what you want to hear. So comment below any topics that you'd like us to cover. So now that we got that over with, here we go.
Excited to be here. So
I'm so excited to have you.
Okay. So, I'm Morgan. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I've been practicing for about 6 years. I recently became certified in perinatal mental health. And so kind of how I got into that, I'm a new mom. I have a 13-month-old, and I think, I've just been touched by postpartum mental health or just perinatal mental health. So, that kind of looks like I experienced a miscarriage before my daughter. And then when I was pregnant with her, I experienced a lot of anxiety, so perinatal anxiety. And so it just really opened my eyes to that. And then as a clinician, I was just seeing a lot of, women, moms coming into my office, and I too had been touched by it. And I was like, I just want to know more about this and, feel like I know how to best support them. And so that's what led me to get, training and certified. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And I love it. I love working with women who are kind of struggling with their journey too, or with motherhood. So whether that's, struggling to get pregnant, struggling with infertility, because it is a journey, or just being a mom in general, and all that comes with. So that's kind of what I do.
I love that so much. Did you see a therapist during your pregnancy and everything too?
So I did reach out. I got, I actually got on, like an SSRI. I got on some medication. And then I didn't start seeing someone until actually postpartum is when I felt like, oh, okay, I really need to start talking to somebody. I've done both. I'm obviously a big believer of therapy. Different times in my life, but yes, postpartum was one of those times that I reached out.
Good. I'm so glad. I did that with I struggled a lot with postpartum anxiety with my first.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he was close to 2 that I realized that it was postpartum anxiety. And so then when I was pregnant with my second, that was like a huge priority for me, was getting that organized beforehand. And I do think it really helped in that postpartum period for sure of my second.
Yeah, I love that you kind of use like what worked and what didn't with maybe your first. Okay, I need to maybe do this beforehand. So
Yeah. Well, and it's hard because I'm sure we're going to get into this, but I had the Edinburgh at my pediatrician appointment and I scored super high on it. And my pediatrician was like, "Oh, are you okay? What's going on?" And I was like, "Well, I'm getting ready to go back to work. I'm not doing well with that." And he's like, "Oh, it's okay. It'll get better." And that was like the only support that he offered me. So then when I got pregnant with my second, I was like, "Yeah, I know that that's what's going to be offered. I'm going to do my own research to find." So I'm really glad we're having this conversation because I think everybody needs to have these resources available to them.
Yes, absolutely. So thinking about this, one of the biggest ones is I think is kind of it stops or ends after that like 4th trimester, right? So the 4th trimester is going to be those 12 weeks after the baby's born. And that's when typically like a lot of moms, do go back to work. And so they go back to kind of their life. And I think, life moves on, society kind of moves on, and moms kind of feel that way too. And they kind of feel that pressure to be like, wait, I'm out of that postpartum period. So I think a huge misconception is like, it's actually a lot longer than that, right? Like you can also develop, postpartum depression or anxiety during that period. You don't have to have it immediately after the baby's born. It can come in later, maybe that 6-month mark or whatever it is. And so I think that's a huge misconception, is just, just because you're out of all the trimesters, it doesn't mean you're clear of like postpartum. And, just to be gentle with yourself during that time period.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah. I
yeah,
talked to a doula. We just posted the video for it, but she had a really good aspect of postpartum is the rest of your life. Like you're never out of technically postpartum. And I really
mhm.
liked that mental shift because you are a whole new person after you have a kid. I mean, you are.
Yes, like there's a really good book that I love. I refer to it. It's called A Mom is Born, but literally
Oh,
that a mom is born. So it's like not just the baby's born, but a mom is
yeah.
each pregnancy, each baby, you kind of become, this new person. And so with that comes all the things that develops, and it's not just something that's like, oh, it's done and over with. You are
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love that so much.
Such a good question. So, those who are going to be, therapists or clinicians that are treating, this, like something that we kind of use for ourselves is like, timing, duration, and kind of the severity, or like the things that we look for. And so for people to know is baby blues are going to be like anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks. But after the 2 week period, it's no longer baby blues. So if you're
Mhm.
still feeling, you know, really, discouraged, or, not like yourself, or you're crying all the time, that's probably no longer baby blues. And even during baby blues, you might be really, teary and just overwhelmed because you're a new
Yeah.
mom, but you predominantly are like happy, or I don't know if that's even the right word, but just, you're not sense of self, like you don't feel down about yourself all the time. You're just
Mhm.
scared, I'm exhausted. That's more baby blues, and that's going to be, like I said, 2 days to 2 weeks, and that's because of like the hormone shifts and
Mhm.
deprivation. But it's not because of there's something, clinically going on. So I think that's a huge thing, is after that 2 week period, that's when it's no longer just the baby blues.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good. I like that. I didn't know that it was only a 2 week
Mm-hmm.
sign. What are some early warning signs that they might be struggling with mental health? And, yes, we're talking about maternal mental health, but there is also paternal or, partner mental health that can be in play during this as well. And I usually tell my clients when I see them for lactation appointments, like having communication between the two of you really makes a big difference. But what are some warning signs that you see and that you tell people about?
Yeah, so I think a big one is when you're no longer kind of feeling like yourself. Like, again, obviously you're changing, so like you're gonna kind of feel like out of sorts. But it's like, man, I just feel, so down about myself. Like a lot of shame and guilt are huge ones that I see, or just hear. And that's the thing too. I think going back to the misconceptions is sometimes it's not symptoms that you see. Like, when we think about anxiety, maybe we think of somebody who's like so anxious or having panic attacks, or depression is they can't get out of bed. But also it could just be hearing things like, I'm a bad mom, or I'm not a good dad. Like
Mhm.
those are kind of some warning signs of like, wait a minute, like check in with yourself. Are we struggling more than we think? So I think that's a big warning sign. And then also like not being able to sleep or being able
Mhm.
to rest. So obviously you're not sleeping a lot as a new
Yeah.
parent. When you're given the opportunity, like if your baby is sleeping, or like it is nighttime and everyone, like, we can sleep, are we able to? If we're not, maybe something more is going on, like with depression, or
Mhm.
those both do interrupt and affect sleep. So I think that's a huge like warning sign of, oh, I can't even sleep when my baby is like sleeping really well.
Yeah, yeah. Again, and that was one of those signs that nobody talked to me about with my first.
Yeah.
And I know this is also really common, but I would wake up I would
Mm,
wake up with my hand on him because I was worried he stopped breathing. And
yeah.
so, and because of that, I really struggled with getting him out of our room because my anxiety was so bad. The American Academy of Pediatrics suggests room sharing for the first 6 months to a year. So it's not a bad thing, but my anxiety was so bad that I couldn't let him sleep unless I could be watching him and monitoring him. So that I really like that the sleep aspect, because people don't talk about that. You think
Yeah,
depression, you think of just all you want to do is lay on the couch. You don't want to get dressed. You don't want to go out, that kind of stuff. But the sleep is
yeah,
a really big one, especially
yeah,
when you're already exhausted and depleted, for
exactly.
sure. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, it can be more subtle than we sometimes think that the
yeah.
symptoms. Yeah. Yes, I think being overwhelmed, I like to say, like, go back to the basics. And I don't say that to make it seem like, oh, it should be easy, because you are taking care of a little life. So, like, that makes everything a little bit more complicated. But, like, yeah, go back to, like, okay, sleep, nutrition, and, taking care of yourself. And we can talk, like, what that means. But, like, okay, if you're struggling to sleep or your baby's struggling to sleep, can you at least rest? Can y'all rest together? Rest allow you to take it easy. Maybe it's not putting so much on yourself, but just, like, resting, getting snuggles and just hanging out. Nutrition, like, that's something too. Like, our food and mood are so interconnected. And so coping, or self-care strategies, does that mean, like, do we need to have a meal train going, or can we meal prep or get some type of subscription that it helps to cook, something like that. Getting outside, that's what I usually say everyone, because baby loves that. Like, I cannot tell you how much happier my daughter is still to this day outside. And so just going outside, change of scenery helps. So sometimes the house, when you are newly parents, you don't leave much, and it can feel really daunting, or just feel like the walls are kind of caving in. So, like, go and get fresh air, go outside. It's good for everybody. So those are kind of like the main, 3, if you will, that I kind of say. And then the last one is just, like, doing something one time a day for yourself. And it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be years worth of time. Can it just be, 15 minutes? Read a chapter, do something where you're like, I enjoyed this and it was for me. Because you're taking care of someone now, you need to also take care of yourself. Easier said than done, but I think those are the main ones.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And prioritizing what's important to you. This is something that's just my personal, like, sensory aspect. But I see so many moms that are like, I haven't showered in like a week and a half or 2 weeks. And I know, and I knew at that time, that if I didn't shower on my normal shower schedule, I didn't feel okay. Like, mentally, I didn't feel okay. And still to this day, 6 years postpartum, I still know that, like, when I'm having a rough day, I'm like, I'm going to go take a shower, because that's, like, something that just helps reset myself. And so I love those little coping strategies of going outside, because that is such a huge one too, of everybody's happier outside.
Sun changes everything.
Yes. And if you're like me and you had your kid in March or during the winter, there are other things to do too, with outside. You can, go on a brisk walk, or sit in front of the window. That's always a good one too. Sometimes just moving that around can sometimes be helpful, I feel like.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to kind of make it unique depending on, like, what's going on, for sure.
Yeah. What about for your support systems? Because, ideally, everyone's going to have a support system in place. We know that that's not always possible. But if you do have a partner that's watching this, or a family member that you're sending this to, what is some sort of best support that they could offer if you are struggling with your postpartum mental health?
Yeah, I love that question. I do think it's so individual, but even individualized, like, I think any support is good support. And what I mean by that is just, I think if you're a partner or a family member watching, is sometimes new parents don't know what they need. And so it could be as simple as just, yes, you of course can ask, and I encourage that. But if they're like, yeah, maybe that would be helpful, or they're like, yeah, that sounds good, but they never follow up with it, why don't you just go ahead and do something for them? So maybe it's just saying, hey, I'm thinking of coming over today, and I'd love to help out with laundry, rather than waiting for them to ask for help. I think those are what you can do. And so just kind of maybe being preemptive of just doing something or bringing something, whether it's a meal, helping them with the extra tasks are really helpful. Or just say, hey, like, let's go do something fun. Like, let's get out. Let's go to the park, something like that would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point too, of like, I hear and have seen so many times on social media of people like, I want to come over and see the baby. And yes, that's very sweet. But in that moment, moms want to hold their babies. They don't want, somebody coming and stealing the baby from them, and then they have to do the laundry or do the dishes, or.
Yeah, they just want those newborn snugs. And so,
yes,
like,
exactly.
like, the amount of, appreciation I had for like my mom, who just came over and like would wash my breast pump. You know what I mean? And it just, I didn't even have to ask, but she just saw it there, sitting in the bowl by the sink or whatever, and she just did it. And I just was like, I needed that in that moment, but just something, if you see a need, I guess maybe is a way of putting it, maybe fill it. Like if you see it, fill it. And if they didn't like that, or that's not what they needed, then of course they can let you know that. But more often than not, that's probably going to be so appreciated.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Or even just saying, hey, I'm going to clean your breast pump for you. Do you have any specifications? Do you want me to use a specific soap? Like, how do you want me to do this? I want to make sure I do it right to be helpful. Sometimes just a simple way of doing that, but doing the I am going to instead of do you want me to? Because, I feel like as moms, it's really hard for us to ask for help sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially for like, I don't even know like what day it is. I don't even know what.
Yeah, exactly. I have so many moms and myself have gone through that. I'm like, I don't even know what day it is. That.
Yeah, it is a huge question. I think, honestly, and when I started, getting trained in perinatal mental health, I also didn't know like, oh my goodness, like the role of sleep that plays in for like just safety, like, actually what can happen if we don't sleep, that's what can cause things like psychosis, and I just say that not to like scare new moms or scare new parents, but it's just so we know, like we approach sleep with like, I guess, the attention it deserves.
Yeah.
So a big thing I think is, okay, if we have not slept, let's say like more than 2 days, like that's at the point where we do need to say, hey, I need to sleep. So I either need to let my partner know that they need to take over this thing, or I need to call for help so I can take like a good chunk of sleep, a nap or something. And so I do say that to say like sleep can create problems if we don't, have enough sleep, like, postpartum psychosis. And I think, what do we do about that? Is I think as much as we can, I know this is frustrating to hear sometimes, like sleep when the baby sleeps. It's like, how can we do that? But it's more so, can we rest when the baby is sleeping? At night, can we be realistic of like what actually needs to get done? Can things wait so that we can sleep? I think that's what we can do with it. I think also being realistic and kind of being like acknowledging, something like the, they call Sunday scaries. I called it, or people call it like the nighttime scaries.
Yeah.
I think having things ready for those night times, if that's like having, a podcast or a book or whatever when you're up with the baby, so that maybe we're not so anxious or whatever that we can't sleep when they do go back down, like things like that can help with the nighttime wakings. I think can also benefit us when we do need to sleep, so that we're not up all the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. And that's a really good point. And I feel like, as a lactation, I also tell people that, it's oxytocin is what drives that milk let down. And oxytocin has a really hard time letting down when you're so sleep deprived that your body's in fight or flight mode. And it impacts everything, your mental health, how you're responding to your baby, all those things. And that I like your suggestion of telling your partner, hey, I need help and I need you to do XYZ. And then having that trust that the partner's going to do those things, for sure can be really helpful.
I think you mentioned the fight or flight too. This might not be fun for new moms or new parents, but like also caffeine. Like I know we love our coffee. Okay, I'm not saying like cut it all out, but also be maybe conscientious of how much you're having, because that also can increase, cortisol, which is the, stress hormone, and that's not going to cause us to want to sleep either. And so being careful about those things too.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a really good point too, of like finding warm, safe feeling drinks and to replace the coffee. Like tea can be really helpful in those moments as well. I really like that. I actually don't think I knew that about caffeine, that it increases your cortisol levels. So that is really interesting.
Yeah. Sure.
Maybe that's why my cortisol level is so high, but
and that's why we try to say, hey, like, are you having coffee? Which I'm such a bad person for this sometimes too. Like before you have breakfast, kind of
Yeah.
balancing it out, because you'll just start your day off with high
Yeah.
cortisol. Like we
Yeah.
don't need that. We don't need to start our day off stressed.
I mean, so like in a nutrition level, you're telling me that I
Yeah.
probably should have eaten something other than this random Pop-Tart before I drank my cup of coffee, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, right. Right.
Support.
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, I think one could be, childcare, right? Or just
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
not feeling like, I don't know, bring your baby. Like
Yeah.
most people who help with this, they would love for you to bring your baby.
Yeah.
I think other, we kind of mentioned it with like support, is maybe not knowing what you need. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that can be a big barrier. Like, I don't even know what would help. And I
Yeah.
think something like that is just, any help is maybe good help, in the sense of like, it's just something to try, and you can pivot. If that doesn't work, you can pivot, but at least like not suffering and trying something. And so if you don't know what would help, you thinking about though you needing help is probably an indicator of like something.
Yeah.
um, and then I think a big one that I hear is just like, maybe not wanting to admit that you're struggling, because
Mm-hmm.
you know the maybe fear of judgment, or feeling like I shouldn't be struggling, like a good mom wouldn't be struggling, a good dad wouldn't be struggling. But the thing is like, we're not immune to it. We're human. It doesn't discriminate towards anyone. Postpartum struggle
Mm-hmm.
with that, like, you recognizing you need help and then getting help is actually what makes you an amazing parent. And so I think that's a big barrier, is just, oh, I don't want to admit that I'm struggling, because that means maybe I'm not a good parent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I have also heard people, their fear that, and you kind of talking about that of like, maybe I'm not a good enough parent, that if they go to seek help, then those professionals are going to have to report them to like CPS or Child Protective Services. And then their fear that their baby's going to be taken away from them, I feel like is one that I've heard before too, which
Yeah.
is just so sad.
It is
Um,
sad. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking too of like the phrase, like, they're gonna think I'm crazy,
yeah.
right? Things like that. And I think that specifically maybe goes to the moms that are struggling with postpartum anxiety or postpartum OCD,
Yeah.
right? And there's also, I talk about books because I love to read and I love to like refer them, but it says Good Moms Have Scary Thoughts is a really
Yeah.
good book. But it talks all about that, of just, hey, like, we all have these thoughts, and it doesn't make you a bad mom. And also, a professional is going to recognize the difference between a mom who intentionally wants to cause their baby harm, right, which is something we're not
Mhm.
talking about, versus, oh my goodness, I'm having intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
um, and normalizing it and actually getting help from it, rather than feeling shame about it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. How do people access postpartum mental health support?
Yeah, great question. So, I think one thing they can do is, reaching out to therapists, or even psychiatrists, right, that maybe specialize in that. So, like, you could go on to like Psychology Today. It's a great website,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
you can filter in, which is really helpful for like, hey, I'm struggling postpartum, and you can find all the people in your area that specialize in that, and just reaching out to them. There's usually a number, or there's an email. And don't worry about putting in everything that you need help with. Even just
Yeah.
saying like, hey, I'm a new mom or I'm a new dad, I need support. They'll come alongside you and help you. You don't have to have all the right answers from the get-go of like what you need. They just, reaching out is like maybe the only thing you need to do there. And then they'll
Yeah.
kind of follow up with you and go from there, as scheduling you an appointment, and kind of seeing what else you might need.
By medical professionals. So, like, for instance,
Yep.
I did the Edinburgh. I told him, hey, I'm not feeling well. And all he said was, okay, well, it'll get better once you go back. It,
Mhm.
surprise, did not get better when I went back. So, like, in that moment, what would you have suggested for me to do, or what would you suggest to somebody else if they feel like they're not getting that support?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say I'm so sorry that happened to you. That makes me so sad. And I know that is a reality for so many
Hmm.
people. And I think if you're feeling that way, one, I want you to just maybe validate that and listen to it, right? So maybe that might mean finding a new provider from that moment, because it's really going to be hard to feel supported by somebody if you already are having those thoughts like, man, I don't feel
Yeah.
like they're listening to me.
Yeah.
um, a lot of help has to be based on like a good foundation with your provider, whether it's a therapist or a doctor or whatever that might be. And so I would say, like, listen to it. They probably didn't intentionally like mean to dismiss you or cause harm, right? But you're feeling the way you're feeling because there is something that's communicating, hey, I'm not right here, something's going on. And so with that is, maybe that is where we can reach out to like our community, of trusted people, like, hey, I'm not really vibing with my doctor here, like, who do you go to, who has worked for you? And then those recommendations and reaching out, and maybe even saying it when you reach out, hey, I've had this experience, and letting them know, I really want somebody that is going to acknowledge this. That way, before you even start with somebody, they know, cool, they really are struggling with this, I need to be sensitive to that, and accept you on as maybe a new client without being like, okay, yeah, I can't help you with that. Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense. Yeah. I think it also, like, you were saying at that point, reach out to your support system or like, Facebook group or whatever. And I just really want to say, like, doing that is actually really brave, but it's also a really great way to show people that, maybe are feeling the same way as you, but they don't feel that brave yet of asking for recommendations or something. So I say this to people who are scared to breastfeed in public as well. When you do that, you are showing somebody else how to do it moving forward. And that is really, really beneficial, breaking down those stereotypes like you talked about, for sure.
Yeah, you're
Love
showing up
that.
like for other women in that
Yeah.
way. Love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So where I got my certification from, it's called Postpartum Support International. So they're a huge organization, and they have tons of free resources, whether it's like book recommendations for all the things that you might be going through, or like free actually support groups. So, I mean, they have hundreds, from those who are struggling with miscarriage to those that are a new mom, or, maybe partner, like dad groups, like those type of, they have everything there, and it's free. So if that's a big barrier there of just, hey, like, I'm on maternity leave, I don't have a lot of extra money to get support here, it's a great avenue to go. And then you kind of already mentioned, but like Facebook groups, there's usually a lot of like local groups, for postpartum moms. And then a really good app too is like What to Expect. And so that's an app that a lot of pregnant moms use, but it also is very much used in the postpartum period too. So you can get in like a forum with, let's say March, mine was March 2024, right? And with moms in the same season, like your baby was born in the same, they're talking about, hey, are you trying solids? Or, hey, is anyone else still struggling with sleep at 9 months postpartum? It's really, really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Having that community really makes a very big difference.
When I was preparing for this, I was like, oh, this is such a sweet question. I think the biggest thing for me looking back is like, it was not maybe what I expected it to be, in just terms of like, I've never done this before, right? And so, not that I thought it would be easy, but it was really, really hard. And so I think maybe just normalizing that maybe it's not supposed to be easy, in the sense of like, you're learning each other, right? Y'all, you're learning each other, you're learning how to latch, all those different things. And so I think just maybe giving yourself that permission of like, it's okay for it to be a struggle, and to, give yourself grace of like, hey, if you need to ask for help with lactation, please do that. Or if you need to talk to other moms or whatever that might be. But I think there's just this kind of stigma of like, it needs to come easy because it's a natural thing to do. And it is natural, right? It's beautiful. But that doesn't mean it's supposed to be easy. And so I think that's the biggest thing I would have tell my younger self with that, of just starting to breastfeed. It was like, oh, okay, it's okay that it's not easy. It doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong.
Oh, I love that so much. Oh, that's such a good point. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, it is biologically normal, but it's not easily normal. And sometimes if you've never seen it before, it can be really hard to do when you're trying to figure it out on your own. We don't expect you to jump on a bike and ride it for the first time. It just takes time, and that's okay. Some people can jump on that bike and ride it for the first time with no issues. It just depends. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. If anybody wanted to reach out and work maybe with you, do you have like information that they could find out? Do you have like a social media page or something that they could find you at?
Yeah, so our website would probably be the best place. And so like just at ReHope Counseling,
Okay.
um, we have multiple therapists, but you can click on my page, just Morgan. I'm also on Psychology Today too, so that's pretty easy to find me. But yeah, those two is just ReHope Counseling and then Psychology Today.
Perfect. And you're local to Texas, right?
Yeah, so I'm in Fort Worth, and so we're kind of
Okay.
in the central part of it. We're off Camp Bowie, and so great central location. But I also am virtual as well, so that's kind of anyone
Perfect.
in the state of Texas I could work with.
Awesome. Awesome. That's so great. Thank you so much, Morgan. This has been so great.
Yes, it's been so sweet. And thank you so much for just asking me and having space to talk about something that I'm so passionate about. I'm so excited that this is getting noticed for tons of women and men too. Just postpartum is such a sweet, delicate time. So
It
thank you.
really, it really, really is. And I'm glad that we're having these conversations for other people to hear as well. So thank you for your time and your expertise and sharing that with us.